No, she's got it on.
It's on, isn't it?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Zanesville Board of Education regular meeting for October 17th, 2023 at Zanesville Middle School. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Mr. Young.
Mr. Baldwin.
Here.
Mrs. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Hickman.
Here.
Mrs. Lee.
Here.
Ms. Long.
Here. Introduction of guests, Mr. Appleman. Thank you. Now we'll move into reports from the Zanesville Community High School with Mr. Jeff Moore.
Good evening, everyone. I'll make this shorter, like it's next green, I'd like to make a lot longer, so I'll keep it short. We have 161 EMIS students total right now. 54 of those are special ed, exceptional ed. We've had one graduate already. Graduate that's finished with everything. We have 7 more on senior release who are waiting their EOC testing windows to come back and take a test. And we have 9 that are currently enrolling right now to start. Our next 9 weeks starts Monday, so we're starting to bring some more back and get our schedule down where we need to be and things going. Again, I mentioned that one. Also, we are working with our scholar back to the fight. We did get that. I think you remember me talking about it. We got that OSFC, Ohio School Facilities Commission grant for possibly a greenhouse kitchen. It was delayed during the COVID thing, and finally got notification that we got it. Now they've switched hands in there. We're trying to get stuff down and get more estimates again. Obviously, in 2 years, we found out the greenhouse estimate doubled. Obviously, we're waiting on the kitchen estimate. We've got a guy coming to do that again. Let us know. But we have till FY 24 in December to get that spent. So we're going to look at how we need to do that moving forward. I'm really more excited about the commercial kitchen than the greenhouse in the back. So we'll figure out what we have to do with that and move forward on those plans. And then we have our fall site sponsor site visit. You guys are our sponsor. The board will be coming over the governing board for us. Your governing board will come over on October 26th. See what we're doing. We've got some paperwork and things to update, get to you, and we'll continue to get that stuff at the center. Moving forward, I think we're off to a pretty good start this year. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Report of the Board of Education to approve the board minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the minutes of the Zanesville Board of Education of the special meeting on September 5th, 2023, and the regular meeting on September 19th, 2023. May I have a motion, please?
All going to move.
And a second? Long second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes. Now have a report of the Treasurer of the Board of Education, Mr. Mike Young.
All right, guys. Anybody have any questions on any of the reports or reconciliations? One thing that is different this month, we have to do the community school budget. It's due at the end of October. So just hopefully you got a chance to look at it. It's basically that's the amount of revenue we expect them to get this year between the foundation and state and federal grants. We didn't budget any of the reserve, with the increases in the foundation and their expected expenses. They're pretty much covered by the current revenues. So they and the city district will have forecasts next month on the agenda. So you wait on different things. I'm working on it. It's pretty much close to being done, but with the election, it changes numbers if you know that it's on the books for the future. So we'll hold off and wait for those for next month. As far as September, the big thing in September is closing out the prior year grants. So all the federal grants were closed out with the exception of any of the actual ESSER COVID monies. IDEA and ESSER 2 both have to close out by December 1st. I have closed out IDEA. We don't have anything else left to liquidate. ESER two, we're still liquidating. That should be done sometime late this month, early next month. And then, of course, ARP ESER will roll into one more fiscal year. Then item 5, we did have some grants and donations. We thank those places. They're almost all of them are repeaters. They typically, Park National Bank does the same thing every year with the shirts and the different gifts, so to speak. Then we also have the Straker Foundation for incentives and the YMCA for the backpack.
Great. May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move and a second.
Baldwin with second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
I will now turn things over to Superintendent's report this evening with Ms. Laura Tompkins.
Be it resolved to approve the following personnel recommendation. Resignation of classified personnel as follows.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Employment classified, approve the following classified personnel for the 2023-2024 school year, pending appropriate certification and requirements and background checks.
May I have a motion, please? Lee will move. And a second.
Hickman will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Number 3, employment for substitutes, approve the following substitutes as listed as when needed, pending appropriate certification and background checks for the 2023-2024 school year.
May I have a motion, please? Long will move. And a second. Lee will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item number 4, FMLA leave of absence, approve the following employees as listed for the FMLA leave of absence.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin will move.
And a second. Long second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
5, after-school program teachers and aides, approve the following personnel as listed as after-school program teachers at the rate of $40 per hour as and when needed for a portion of the 2023-2024 school year. Teachers will be funded by Muskingum Behavioral Health Grant Funds and or 21st Century Grants and or ESSER. Also approve the following personnel as listed as after-school program paraprofessionals at a rate of $20 per hour as when needed for a portion of the 2023-2024 school year. There's a correction there, aides in the place of teachers in that paragraph. Aides will be funded by Muskingum Behavioral Health Grant Funds and or 21st Century Grants and or ESSER.
We have a motion, please. Clerk will move and a second.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Item 6, preschool extended day. Approve the following teacher as listed to work the early late room for John McIntyre Elementary as when needed at the rate of $20 per hour for the 2023-2024 school year.
We have a motion, please.
Hickman will move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 7, supplemental contracts. Approve the following supplemental contract as listed pending certification and background check for the 2023-2024 school year.
We have a motion, please. Lee will move. And a second.
Hickman will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Item number 8, volunteers. Approve the following volunteers as listed for the Zanesville City Schools for the 2023-2024 school year pending appropriate background checks.
May I have a motion, please? Long will move. And a second. Lee will second. Any discussion? We thank them for their time. Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 9, professional development, restraint training. Approve a correction to the amount for restraint training paperwork for Matthew Winland to reflect $20 per trainee instead of the previously approved per hour. Approve the list of additional individuals as listed for restraint trainings. Trainings will be held at Zane Gray Intermediate from 4:30 to 8:30 as scheduled. Payment will be $25 per hour for trainees. Katie Kimball should be taken from the,
Taken off the list.
taken off the list. Strike.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin move.
And a second. Long second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 10, stipends for the 21st Century Program, MBH After School Programs. Approve the following individuals to receive a $6,000 stipend for administration of the program at their respective buildings for the 2023-2024 school year. Administrators will be funded by the 21st Century funding or the MBH grant funding.
May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move and a second.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Item 11, Zanesville High School early graduation candidate. Approve Nathan Scott as an early graduation candidate, subject to completing the graduation requirement effective January 6, 2024.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 12, Zanesville Community High School items. Approve after-school PBIS professional development meetings for certified staff at Zanesville Community High School. All meetings and topics must have prior approval from the executive director of Zanesville Community High School. Attendees will be paid $100 per meeting using funds from the Title II-A. This item will be approved by the Zanesville Community High School Board of Directors at their October meeting.
May I have a motion, please? Lee will move. And a second.
Hickman will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Item 13, Eagle Wings Agreement. Approved to enter into an agreement with Eagle Wings Academy for the educational services for 2 students for the FY 24. Cost including a 5% discount will be $61,560.
We have a motion, please,
Long move.
and a second.
Leo second.
Any discussion?
How's that funded?
That's general fund. Typically with Eagle Wings, they don't accrue enough costs for it to be included in catastrophic costs. I think maybe with transportation, you can get a few bucks back, but not very much. And I think we share them with West. We transport them to a meeting spot with West and then they take them on to Eagle Wings.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes. Item 14, Youth Villages Agreement. Approved to enter into an agreement with Youth Villages of Bartlett, Tennessee to provide educational services for a student at $179.58 per school day, up to 180 days per school year. Total not to exceed $33,000.
May I have a motion, please,
Baldwin move.
and a second.
Long second.
Any discussion?
Same fund.
Yeah, typically the kids that end up down there are placed down there by Children's Services.
No busing involved.
No busing involved.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 15, Mideast Career and Technology Center Certificate Ceremony. Approve the use of Zanesville High School facility by Mideast Career and Technology Center for their certificate ceremony on May 21st, 2024, with the rain dates of May 22nd and May 23rd, 2024.
May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move, and a second.
Baldwin second.
Any discussion?
Just to let you know, again, I've reiterated, but Mideast is very grateful for the use of that facility. So it's a perfect fit for what they have to do. So just letting you know that appreciated and it's good for us.
Yeah, looks good for people to see ours.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Item 16, Ohio University executed Global Health Sciences and Professions Affiliation Agreement. Approve the attached revised 5-year agreement between Ohio University College of Health Sciences and Professions and Zanesville City Schools for clinical affiliation with the addition of the speech pathology, language pathology, along with nursing program beginning January 1st, 2024.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 17, Kid Consulting Agreement. A resolution to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Kid Consulting Group LLC to provide support for the 21st Century Community Learning Center programs at Zangray Elementary School in place of RFG Associates, which have been previously board approved for this support.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second.
Hickman will second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, this is just, I believe Rob Ginther retired. Same people, just name change.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
18, Christian Children's Home of Ohio Incorporated Agreement. Approved to enter into agreement with Christian Children's Home of Ohio Incorporated to provide education for a student while being placed there. Cost will be $200 per day for the school year of 2023 and 2024. Cost is estimated at $31,000.
May I have a motion, please?
Long will move.
And a second.
Lee will second.
Any discussion? Same thing. Yeah. Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 19, job descriptions. Approve the following job descriptions that have been modified.
We have a motion, please,
Baldwin move.
and a second. Long second. Any discussion?
Just, I assume you worked with the people to modify these, like, do we know
Yeah,
that?
Libby's gonna work 12,000 hours a week. You're good with that?
I think Mr. Emmer,
Yeah.
Mr. Emmer did a
He,
lot with it
he
as
worked
well.
with them. I
Yes.
figured they did. I
Yes.
just wanted to, yeah,
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure there was transparency there. So, okay.
We'll let you know next week. It'll be fine.
It might be 12,005.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 20, an exciting item, Admiral Callan Field. Approve the naming of the field in Salzburger Stadium after Admiral Albert M. Callan III. Admiral Callan is well deserving of this honor as a former ZHS standout football player who went on to star as the U.S. Naval Academy. Wow, I'm really butchering that up. His career achievements as a naval officer are far too many to list, but a few standouts. Commander of SEAL Team 6, Deputy Director for Strategic Operational Planning at the National Counterterrorism Center, Commander of the Naval Special Warfare Command, and Deputy Director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Admiral Callan also earned several medals of distinction during his career, including the Bronze Star. The wording on the field would read Admiral Callan Field. So there's been some discussion that we're changing the name of the stadium. We're not changing the name of the stadium. It's just the field. Sorry, you had to listen to that. My apologies.
May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move, and a second.
Baldwin second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Item 21, policy items up for approval.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion?
I'm assuming the use of medication is students? or-
Yes.
Yes. How that's dispersed throughout the day and okay.
Lock cabinets, all that kind of stuff.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes. Let's move into board committee updates. Mrs. Lee, anything with legislation?
Oh, yes, there is.
Yeah.
So I've got several updates, so, what do we do now? Talking about the Department of Education and Workforce, as stated in the state's biennial budget, the House Bill 33, the Department of Education and Workforce would be established as a cabinet level department with a director who would report directly to the governor. Was set to be partially phased in beginning on October 3rd. And once operational, would absorb much of the power and the responsibilities that were previously held by the State Board of Education. This was a major concern when the idea to create was considered, since the State Board of Education is established and deemed necessary in the Ohio Constitution. Once was operational, the State Board of Education would only be responsible for the teacher licensure and territory transfers. This transition is now in limbo after a lawsuit was filed by 7 members of the State Board of Education, and a Franklin County Court of Common Pleas judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking portions of House Bill 33 from becoming law. This temporary order was issued so that the court may review the legality of some of the provisions in the House Bill 33. So 3 provisions that the plaintiffs argue violate the Ohio Constitution are adding educational policy to the budget violated the single subject rule that says laws cannot be about more than one topic. The education takeover provisions in House Bill 33 didn't get 3 considerations as required. And Ohioans voted to create the board in 1953, giving it certain core powers that the legislative can't take away. So they currently, Governor DeWine argued that the temporary order only means he cannot appoint a due director or transfer State Board of Education powers to due. In absence of the governor appointed director, the current interim superintendent of public instruction is Dr. Christopher Willard, will continue to oversee due for the time being. So we're in a big limbo state. And it might not sound like it's a big deal, but I think as far as moving the work of the department forward, it is becoming a little harder to do. Just knowing my experience with working with the department, there are things they've actually had to take down off of their website, and some work has stopped. So because they're in this limbo, so it does trickle down.
How does that affect us here?
It doesn't. How does it affect Zanesville?
Yeah.
I would say we're not going to feel a lot of the impact right now, but as work with, I would say work with like some of the state support team work, as far as just having the support from the department could have some impact.
Funding issue, nothing that would.
Nothing funding right now.
Grants management's still running, fiscal offices are still running as normal. It's just job titles.
Job
right now.
titles, that kind of thing. Yeah. I know that some state agencies, there's been a slow up on releasing ESSER funds that were granted from the department to different state agencies. That's kind of slowed. So that part of it's kind of,
I'm just seeing there's a little delay on the payment, but that's not necessarily unusual this time of year because they're trying to process the closeouts. So, but like we talked about, the ESSER grants not being closed yet. The cash requests for those have been, a little bit longer than normal. Usually you have it within 10 days.
Yeah.
I'd say we're sitting at about 11 or 12 since I put the last one in. I didn't check today to see if it was coming, but
I'm living that too on my end,
so
in my work.
we're just seeing a couple of days delay on the payments.
That's just been a couple for you. State report cards, that's another update. Just before the lawsuit on the future of the State Board of Education and due kicked off, ODE released the highly anticipated state report cards, which we've received that information from that. The other one is legislation around student absences. So the State House is also looking more accurately reflecting the chronic absentee rate through the legislation. So Senate Bill 49 originally passed by the Senate to mandate each K-12 public school to adopt policy providing students with religious expression days has been amended by the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee. The substitute version of Senate Bill 49 adds the following things. It changes the definition of chronic absenteeism to no longer include excused absences, and it does not count excused absences towards habitual truancy or excessive absenteeism until a student has more than 60 hours of excused absences. And it provides a list of what must be considered a legitimate excuse for absences, and it updates the state's graduation rate formula, so schools and districts are not penalized when students on individual education plans defer graduation. So if passed in its amended form, Senate Bill 49 could help the state report card and district report cards improve even further, but student engagement is still key to a student's long-term academic success. This was emphasized by Dr. Wooler when addressing the state report card ratings in front of the Senate. So I know chronic absenteeism is something the district is talking about. So those are legislative things that they sent us. And then for student achievement, I did not get to attend the DLT yesterday. but I know that they talked about the English language arts, ELA and literacy data review and a math data review. So we're talking about all of the data going in there. And then the other thing I would like to encourage principals, there's still time to submit student achievement groups
School board.
for OSBA. So if you have any group that you want to highlight, last year we did the middle school group. I know in the past we've done robotics, but I know that there's some other, probably some student achievement. I think we talked about even maybe the National Road Student Leader Program. That might be a nice one to highlight. But it's nice if since we're attending OSBA, if we have some kiddos there to say, look, hey, this is our district. So I would highly encourage us to have a group there. So we still have time.
Thank you, Lori. Mr. Young, anything with the audit or insurance?
They asked, the auditors sent me a schedule. Initially wanted to come November 8th, 9th, and 10th. I responded back, the 10th is a holiday, we're closed, and haven't heard back. So I don't know if they're coming the 8th or not, let's see. As far as insurance, from a health standpoint, we went through open enrollment with the staff beginning of the month. I think there was still about 60 or so that, you got people out on leave, you got custodians don't come in until later in the day. So ALR is working through those people individually. And we have the builder's risk insurance in place for the building effective yesterday. So and that's it.
Buildings and Grounds Committee met this morning. Some of the highlights, the roofing, high school is just about finished. The middle school, they're still working on the edging. John McIntyre, they've been delivering the roofing material there, and we'll be starting soon on that. Zane Grey Intermediate, they've been working on the new generator, getting all the parts and everything ready so that possibly over Christmas break, they can get it in place. And of course, that's where the district servers are. So it's very important that if electric's out, that we've got something in place to keep things going. The signs, the new replacement signs are all up at the buildings. They look really nice out front with those. And I know there's a little bit of landscaping left to do at the high school around that. The multi-purpose building, we'll be starting to put the fence up on Thursday this week. So the parking, we had talked about that before, the parking will be shut down out here and there'll be parking out here. So that's been approved by the fire marshal. So that's a good thing. Athletic wise, they need to replace the volleyball caps on the gym floor. So they're looking at that, something that's more permanent and won't come up at some point. The video board in the gym needs a new computer to get things operational. So I know Scott's looking at some of that to see if that can be in place for the season. We continue to talk about the football video board needing replaced on the football field. Track needs resurfaced. Painting's not going to help it, but it needs resurfaced. And we're talking about 88,000 on that. I know Scott's working to try to get some help with that. The middle school, obviously they're using the stairwell. So if you haven't seen it or looked at it, take a peek or walk down it today. It's very, very nice. Still have the punch list to finish with that. And they're also we need new treads on the steps that are in place now. And if we looked at that coming up today, some of those are missing. So they're working on getting that replaced. And I think Mr. Stallard said this morning that Zane Grey, we've got the playground coming. The all-purpose playground, is that what we call that? All-purpose playground that will be used out there. Want to build a track around it. So they're looking at options to get some things in paving, how to pay for that from the paving companies to add that track while they're doing the new playground, which will be a good thing for a walkway around it, be accessible for everybody to walk through. And I think that's it on that part. Business advisory, I believe, is next week.
Next
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So glad to have that taking place. Any other closing comments?
We're using the stairwell now
Yes.
here.
Yes.
It made a difference,
Mhm,
big time.
very much so.
I'd like to say, we're getting ready to round out the first 9 weeks. We have a lot of administrators in the building, a lot of administrators in new positions that are doing an outstanding job. So I applaud their efforts in getting into the new roles and, our staff, they're excited to be in the building. Some of them are tired. We're still seeing behaviors that are not equal to pre-COVID behaviors, so they're working in the classrooms and so if you see a teacher out, tell them they're doing a good job because some of them are
You
tired.
mean student behavior, not teacher
Did
behavior.
I say teacher behavior?
No, I just didn't, you didn't
Well,
class,
maybe she did mean teacher behavior.
you didn't
No, student
specify.
behavior. Yes, student behavior. Student behavior.
And she's right. I've been out in the buildings the last couple of weeks again and they are working hard, been in and out of the classrooms. The kids are anxious to show you what's going on and I compliment the staff because they all, and administrators, they're all working very, very hard to educate our students. And we do appreciate all your hard work with that.
Well, we appreciate it because, and I have to say, we appreciate Valencia. Because she is the one of us that is not working. She's retired. And so she can get into the schools all the time. So we appreciate you for being our ambassador for the board. But as you know, I try to send an email before school starts and after school's ended during the year because I'm not able to get out into the schools, but I want you to know how much I appreciate what you've done and what you're doing continually and your staff. You guys are amazing. I couldn't do it, but I applaud each and every one of you. And Jeff, what is happening at the community school, you guys are doing an amazing job down there. And the administration, I mean, they work hard, down at the building. So we appreciate what you guys do, what all of you do. So thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. At this time, we will be stepping into executive session for a few minutes. Whereas the Board of Education and other governmental bodies are required by statute to take the official action and to conduct all deliberations upon official business only in open meetings unless the subject matter is specifically exempted by law. Whereas the minutes need only reflect the general subject matter of the discussion in executive session. And whereas the members of the public body may hold an executive session only at a regular or special meeting for the sole purpose of consideration of any of the matters set forth below. Now therefore be it resolved under the provision of the Ohio Revised Code 121.22, the board hereby enters into executive session for the reasons herein stated. Personnel matters.
So it's the middle one.
The middle one, to consider the promotion and compensation of public employees or officials. We enter into executive session at 6:39 p.m. May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second.
Hickman, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate your efforts. Coming back out of executive session at 7:56 PM. May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
In a second,
Hickman will second.
roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned. Be it resolved that the Zanesville City Schools Board of Education is adjourned at 7:57 PM. May I have a motion, please?
Long move.
And a second?
Leo second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.